Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to the Practical Stoic Podcast, where I give you practical Stoic advice for modern times. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/Simon Drew. I also do one-on-one mindset coaching, and you can book in your first free consultation by going to risetothegoodlife.com/coaching. On Facebook, you can join my group, the Practical Stoic Mastermind. But for now, enjoy this episode. Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to the Practical Stoic Podcast. I wanted to start today's episode by mentioning that I have recently re-recorded episode number 3 of the podcast, which outlines the core values of Stoicism. The reason I wanted to do this is because over the course of doing this podcast, I've learned so much more about Stoicism, and I realized that there are a few areas of that episode where I may have been misrepresenting some of the aspects of this amazing philosophy. And so I felt like the best thing to do was to update it. So if any of you are interested in getting a refresher on Stoicism and its core values, then feel free to go back and listen to that episode, number 3, again. And seeing as I have just re-recorded that episode about Stoicism's core values, I felt like this would also be a good opportunity for me to talk for a moment about the true aim of philosophy in general. Because as most of you know, Stoicism is very much a practical philosophy, which teaches us that philosophy should set its aim at bettering humanity. And so today I wanted to share a large passage from Epictetus where he explains philosophy's true purpose. In my view, this passage that I'm about to read to you is one of the greatest explanations of philosophy, and I hope that it will enhance your experience as you study and apply Stoicism to your life. So I'll read this passage all the way through, and then I'll break down a few key lines. So Epictetus said, quote, "Philosophy's purpose is to illuminate the ways our soul has been infected by unsound beliefs, untrained tumultuous desires, and dubious life choices and preferences that are unworthy of us. Self-scrutiny applied with kindness is the main antidote. Besides rooting out the soul's corruptions, the life of wisdom is also meant to stir us from our lassitude and move us in the direction of an energetic, cheerful life. Skilled use of logic, disputation, and the developed ability to name things correctly are some of the instruments philosophy gives us to achieve abiding clear-sightedness and inner tranquility, which is true happiness. This happiness, which is our aim, must be correctly understood. Happiness is commonly mistaken for passively experienced pleasure or leisure. That conception of happiness is only as good as far as it goes. The only worthy object of all of our efforts is a flourishing life. True happiness is a verb. It's the ongoing dynamic performance of worthy deeds. The flourishing life, whose foundation is virtuous intention, is something we continually improvise, and in doing so our souls mature. Our life has usefulness to ourselves and to the people we touch. We become philosophers to discover what is really true and what is merely the accidental result of flawed reasoning, recklessly acquired erroneous judgments, well-intentioned but misguided teachings of parents and teachers, and unexamined acculturation. To ease our soul's suffering, we engage in disciplined introspection in which we conduct thought experiments to strengthen our ability to distinguish between wholesome and lazy hurtful beliefs and habits." End quote. So I'm sure that you'll agree that this passage is so incredibly powerful, and it's an excellent description not only of the purpose of philosophy, but also of how to use philosophy to better our lives. And so I want to point out a few areas of this passage that really deserve some extra thought. First, Epictetus said that philosophy's purpose is to illuminate the ways that our soul has been infected by unsound beliefs, untrained desires, and dubious life choices and preferences that are unworthy of us. And the reason why I wanted to point out this part is because it reminds us that our lives are extremely valuable, and that we are so incredibly important. He also reminds us of this later on in the passage where he says that your life has usefulness to yourself and to the people you touch. There are some life choices and habits that are simply unworthy of you. Philosophy can help us to illuminate these choices and habits that are unworthy of us, and then it gives us the tools to move towards habits and choices that are worthy of the people who we want to be. I think that a great place to start whenever you're beginning the process of self-improvement is to recognize just how valuable and important your life is. And when you recognize this, then it becomes a lot easier to see where you're falling short. And moving on, the next part of the passage that I wanted to be mindful of is where he says that self-scrutiny applied with kindness is the main antidote. Something that I've often said on this podcast and with my clients is that whenever you're trying to improve, there is always room for more kindness and self-forgiveness. We will not always be perfect, and we won't always act in our best interests. Sometimes we don't make the right choices, and as much as we should be applying the self-scrutiny, we should also be applying self-forgiveness. If you don't live up to the expectations that you set yourself, it is right to be disappointed, but getting angry at yourself will only prolong the process of change. Epictetus's formula for self-scrutiny and kindness certainly is an excellent recipe for life change. And moving on, I think that one of the most important parts of this passage is where Epictetus says that true happiness is a verb, and that it's the ongoing dynamic performance of worthy deeds. This is perhaps the basis of a whole new episode, but for now I think that it's important to mention that so many people believe that happiness is something that you either have or you don't, and this is simply not the case. Happiness is something that we must continually work at. And it's something that will fluctuate from day to day, depending on what you're doing and how much effort you're putting towards maintaining the state of happiness. Stoics teach that happiness comes from living a virtuous life, and this is something that can only be achieved through discipline and consistent effort. But just because you're happy today doesn't mean that you'll feel the same tomorrow. See, it's like physical health. One workout will not keep you healthy for the rest of your life. But if you work out 3 times a week for the rest of your life, then you'll see incredible results. And it's no different with your happiness. You can't expect to be happy for the rest of your life just because you spent 1 month studying philosophy. You have to continually study and practice philosophy for it to really have a lasting effect on your life. The final part of the passage that I think is worthy of some extra thought is where Epictetus says that we become philosophers to discover what is really true and what is merely the accidental result of flawed reasoning, recklessly acquired erroneous judgments, well-intentioned but misguided teachings of parents and teachers, and unexamined acculturation. When we grow up, we take on the habits, philosophies, and life choices of all the people who influence us. And I genuinely believe that most people never take the time to question whether their inherited worldviews and philosophies are valuable or not. This is what philosophy encourages us to do, to stop drifting and to finally pick apart our personal values and beliefs so that we can see if they are worthy of us or not. Philosophy wakes us from our slumber and allows us to decide who we want to be. This, in my view, is one of the most incredible gifts that philosophy gives us. So I hope that that passage from Epictetus was helpful, and I hope that it inspires you to keep on studying and practicing this wonderful philosophy. Always remember how valuable your life is, and remember that what philosophy gives us is the chance to live a life that is worthy of who we are. Take your life and your happiness seriously, and as you practice philosophy consistently, I know that you'll experience the energetic and cheerful life that Epictetus has promised. I'll talk to you in the next episode, but until then, I hope that this episode has helped you on your rise to the good life. Ciao. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practical Stoic Podcast. I hope it's been valuable for you, and if you'd like to support the show, then you can go to patreon.com/Simon Drew. If you'd like to try mindset coaching with me, then you can book your first free consultation by going to risetothegoodlife.com/coaching. To join the community, just go to Facebook and search for the Practical Stoic Mastermind. The links to all of these places are included in the show notes, but for now, this is Simon Drew signing out.